You're a walking computer with software that is entirely configurable. Are you configuring it in the way you want?
What if psychedelics could unlock the truth about who you are and where your life is headed? Today on the Deeply Aligned podcast, I'm sitting down with James Xander, a spiritual explorer and reality creator who used psychedelics to break free from limitations, push beyond the illusions of life, and discover his true purpose. In this episode, James shares his raw insights on awakening, expanding consciousness, and creating a life beyond the ordinary. If you're ready to unlock new levels of clarity and power, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in.
James Xander, welcome to the Deeply Aligned podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be on your podcast.
I'm honored to have you here, man, as a dear friend, brother, but also really respect what you're doing in this space of psychedelic exploration and reality creation and consciousness seeking. Learned a lot from you, and really looking forward to this conversation.
Let's dive in.
Before we dive into your mission, which is quite extraordinary, manifestation, energetic, psychedelics, and whatnot, I had a question from last podcast guest. We're always ending with a question that they can ask to the next one.
Love it.
And it's kind of funny how it's perfectly suited to you without them knowing who we're coming next. So I guess the synchronicity is there. But yeah, the question was, how spiritual should we be as humans? Because we are here in this 3D hologram to have a human experience, and it's very important to know that there's something else to what we can see right here, right now. So how do you find a balance between being spiritual and being human? And is there even a separation between those two things?
That's it, isn't it? Is there a separation? For me, there is no separation. Everything is spiritual. Your relationship to life, your relationship to your friends, your relationship to yourself. If you only look at life through the material lens, you're missing so much frequency, so much data. And so I encourage people to look at it through both lenses, both the material, the grounded, the practical, the 3D, and this other mystical, more spiritual, more soulful lens, and switch between the two lenses as needed, but always have them in harmony. And when one lens is contradicting the other, that means something in the data is off. You're looking at it not correctly. For example, if you're hating someone or you're resentful of someone, something's off in you, not in them, because that means you're looking at life through the lens of resentment or through the lens of fear or the lens of judgment. A great mantra that I love to use is, God, help me see this through your eyes. Right? So help me see this through the eyes of the divine, because my human vision might be distorted.
Yes. Well said. Well said. And
what do you think of this question?
I agree. I think there's no separation. I think we are spiritual explorers in our core. And we have not yet seen, or most of us have not yet seen, what's outside of our human experience and the 3D world. But through my experiences and yours as well, and anyone who's taken a good dose of psychedelics, then you get that new experience and new perspective for the first time in your life, and you understand that, wow, what is this? There's so much more.
Exactly.
Frequencies and energies and all of this. So that's what's so fascinating to me and to you, to explore this and to try to understand more of it. And it's almost like it becomes this thing of, and I heard you saying this as well, like, how can we not talk about this more?
Yeah.
How is it possible that we're not talking about this more than we are? So going further, what is the potential? Like, what is the potential of psychedelics, in your opinion?
The potential of psychedelics is to show you more truth about yourself, more truth about reality, to give you an out-of-box experience. You know, when we're living our 3D grounded lives, we can get stuck in a loop of some sort, a thought loop, a belief loop, an action loop, habit loop, an addiction loop. And what psychedelics do so well is for 6 to 8 hours, they bring you out of that loop. And it's like, in my experience, it's like you're able to see your whole life zoomed out, and you can see the whole maze. And you can see your little avatar banging against the dead end when right here is another exit. And so I have found it to be so helpful in solving challenges, finding solutions to problems. That there was one point I remember where option A didn't feel good to me, option B didn't feel good to me. I knew if I took mushrooms, I would see option C.
I like that.
And I went into, and I had no idea. I even tried to like intellectually figure it out beforehand. Like, well, if I know there's an option C, surely I can figure it out without the mushrooms. I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't see the solution. And it's what I was saying earlier, seeing through God's eyes, seeing through the mushroom eyes. I went into the mushroom trip. I think within the first hour or two, they delivered to me the perfect blend of option A and option B that I just was blind to. I could not see it.
Yeah.
And in the mushroom trip, it was unveiled to me.
That's a good description of it, right? Where like we think like we have option 1 and option 2 or option A or option B, but then we don't even know what we don't know.
Exactly.
And that's what the psychedelics can show us.
Absolutely.
Something unknown that we didn't even knew existed. And usually, most of the time, or always in my opinion so far, a better option. Like your path that brings you into further alignment and your highest self, your highest truth, your purpose. Yeah. Grand mission. I love it. 1 billion humans mission.
1 billion humans mission. Let's get 1 billion people to take mushrooms on the same day and see what happens to the planet's frequency. And let's get 1 billion people first educated about plant medicine. So when they go into this trip, they're ready.
Yes. Walk us through that, how that mission was born, because I know there's a great story behind it.
It was born in my first ayahuasca ceremony. I did ayahuasca in beginning of 2022 in Mexico. It found me. I had always kind of wanted to do it, but when the time is right, it really calls to you. It appears in your reality. Super nervous to go into this ayahuasca ceremony. Super unsure of what I would discover there. But I knew I had the intention of show me my purpose. Show me what I'm here to do. And that ceremony was life-changing. It showed me that I had to start a YouTube channel. Showed me that I had to start a podcast about plant medicine. And in the middle of it, I asked Mother Aya, what can we do to unite the planet? It was the end of COVID, and I felt the planet was so divided from those 3 years of trauma, essentially, collective trauma. And so many people fighting on these different issues. And I said, okay, how did we get so divided? We're all one big family. And yet we're treating each other like enemies. And I asked Mother Ayahuasca, how could we unite the planet? And she showed me this vision of, she basically threw the question back at me, what worked for you? What worked to unite you with your soul, with your heart? I was like, plant medicine, mushrooms. They had done so much good for me. And I realized, okay, so a book might not change the world, a leader, a politician, a guru, but someone sitting for 6 hours with themselves and with the plant medicine and hearing the messages from themselves, that will change the world. If every person on the planet had that experience of communion with the divine, communion with their higher self, then they're not taking that authority from the outside. They're listening to their inner authority. And then everything starts aligning in their life.
Yeah. What brought you to ayahuasca, if you fill us in on the gap before that?
At the time I did it, I was feeling lost. I had some of the pieces of where I wanted to go, but not enough clarity on what my mission was supposed to be. A lot of regrets around certain things, a lot of traumas that I don't think I fully looked at, which were definitely brought up in the ceremony. I can tell you that. That was, by the way, the first 3 hours of that first ayahuasca ceremony, the hardest, most difficult time. Probably because it was just clearing up so much junk that had piled up. And I literally thought to myself, if this is going to be it for the rest of the night, because I knew a ceremony would be at least 8 hours. If this is going to be it for the next 8 hours, I'm not going to survive tonight. So much resistance. And then slowly, bit by bit, started breaking my heart open, breaking the light open. And so I faced the shadow and then was brought into the light in that ceremony. But where it helped the most was purpose.
Yeah.
I just had such a clear sense of what I was meant to do after that ceremony. And it took time to implement the homework from that. And I've been working on that for the last 3 years to follow the guidance that I received there. But the message was very clear. You're here to teach others about plant medicine, to expand consciousness. And everything I've been doing since then has been either teaching people about psychedelics or something around expanding their consciousness, their mindset, connecting with their heart, connecting with their soul.
Yeah. Yeah, what you're saying here, like coming in with an intention, what is my purpose? Looking for your individual truth, but also collective truth, one could say. Is psychedelics, whether it's mushroom, ayahuasca, or maybe anything else, DMT and so forth, is it the ultimate truth teller?
Interesting question. Let me think about this. It's been very on point for me.
For me as well.
Every time I've followed the guidance that I was receiving, it's never let me down. There have been 1 or 2 moments where I got downloads about other people, and I haven't yet verified if those were true or not. So there's a few pending things, pending truths. But when it comes to myself, there's been no doubt. It can just read my energy, read my whole psyche, and tell me exactly what I'm missing, what I need to work on. Every single trip has been such an upgrade. Always there's lessons that I find. Always there's homework and information. But it's energetic information as well. It's not just here is what you need to do. Here is the energetic upgrade of the person you need to become to step into that new you.
Yeah.
So to me, they are truth tellers, absolutely. Ultimate is a tricky word because, I don't know, depending on which timeline you're in and what you start manifesting, I feel like one thing the mushrooms also do is they show you versions of the future. However, if you choose different decisions, that timeline will not happen. So it's a truth, but it's part of a multitude of different truths depending on which timeline you choose.
Yeah.
So that's where you gotta follow the homework. If you like what it's shown you, you gotta follow the homework and integrate that so you get on that timeline. Otherwise, you'll miss the train. You can catch another train later, but you'll miss that particular one.
And it will come back. Yeah, we'll speak a lot about integration later on for sure. But I know you explained or described your first experience, your first THC edible, and you consider like that was like my first clue.
It was my first clue. So THC, not a psychedelic technically, but it shifts your perception of reality.
Yeah.
And when I experienced that, it was game over. I was like, oh man, like the doors are open now. I can see if this little tiny THC edible can show me more perception of life, more perception of this reality. And I was so curious about reality. Like this has been from a very young age, I think. I just felt there's got to be more to reality than the physical. And I would read books and they would confirm that intellectually. But I wanted to experience it here. And I remember thinking like, show me a UFO universe. Give me an out-of-body experience. Give me this tangible proof that will for sure, illuminate to me that there's more. And it wasn't coming, probably because I wasn't ready or I was too doubtful or too skeptical. And then THC was the first little glimpse of here's what's possible. And shortly after it, my psychedelic journeys began with LSD, DMT, mushrooms, and that really confirmed everything.
Hmm. The THC, was that in Canada?
That was in Canada. Kind of a funny story. My friend Sky, amazing friend, he was driving from Seattle to Vancouver
Hmm.
to meet up and visit me, and we were going to hang out. And he forgot that in his bag, he still had this little THC edible, and he drove across the border with it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of took it as a sign, like, okay. And he knew I was very curious to start exploring that realm, but also nervous. So he was like, take this. It's not going to do much at all. It's gentle. So it's the perfect opening.
Perfect. I'm super curious myself because I think I have a little bit of a similar story of like, I'm wondering, when did you realize you were different?
Oh man, this is a tricky question to answer.
Yeah. Because it happens not in just one point, it happens like in an evolution in a way.
I don't know. I always kind of felt different. Like, haven't you? Like, I can't recall a moment. Probably like very, very young. Probably I felt like, I don't know. The memories are fuzzy there. But the things I was interested in about reality, about manifestation, about how thoughts create reality, and no one around me seemed as interested in that.
Yeah.
So where did that seed come from? Like, why specifically I was so interested in it? I have a theory, if reincarnation is the case, that we come to this life with a bit of preparation from the previous lives. So let's say in a previous life, by age 30, you discovered that your thoughts create reality. In this life, the universe is going to plant clues so that you reach it by age 25 or 20 to save you time, because there's no point of repeating the class.
Yeah.
So there was certain clues, certain books, certain people that I felt were placed on my path because I didn't control that part of it. But certain books came into my life, completely changed the paradigm, the way I was seeing the world. And I can only attribute that to the grace of God or the grace of the universe of putting those specific pieces of information in front of me.
Yeah. I like that. Because I always wonder myself also, because yeah, as far as, for long as I can remember, I also felt quite different or maybe an outcast, or like, why am I interested in these existential things that no one else is thinking about at this age? And obviously there's a lot of details in there, but like most people, when they feel different or an outcast, they start hiding and see that as something bad. And obviously I didn't just see it as good immediately, but I'm wondering, curious how it was for you, of like, did you see it as bad for a while, or did you immediately or quite quickly see it as, I'm different and I love it by myself, it's a good thing, let me go with that curiosity?
I think this is, maybe others can relate to this. In my own heart and soul, I never felt it was bad. Like, I could accept basically all parts of myself and how I was showing up and what I was interested in. But for sure, to the outside world, I was not always revealing what I was interested in. And it's really been a journey of the last couple of years to start delayering those defenses and allowing the world, my friends, strangers, to see me as I am. And it's still an ongoing process. The being seen theme, which I think permeates my YouTube journey and my podcasting journey, it was a very, I don't know if it was tough, but it was very challenging in the beginning to like really put myself out there. Ayahuasca helped a lot. That first ceremony, it wasn't just the purpose that it gave me, it also energetically slashed away some of the fears and the limitations I had. Almost like removing these blocks and saying, you don't need this. Go ahead. So you bring up a really great point, or a great question, which is, you can accept yourself, but if you're not showing it to the world fully and embodied in it, how much are you really accepting yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was younger, I didn't have that awareness. I thought, oh, it's okay. I'm accepting myself. It's okay that I'm not having close friends that I can share this with. Whereas now I realize, no, it's really important that the inside you and the outside you are matching as much as possible. As much as possible. And if there's any discrepancy between who you are at home alone and who you are with others, that's the work.
Yes.
That's the entire work, because you are not free in that area.
Yeah.
If you're hiding any part of yourself, that means you're not free.
You will have to raise that standard, that frequency sooner or later in order to.
And it's a process. And what I've learned is the process never stops. There's always more layers. So don't try to get it all done in one go, although you can try. But for me, it's been really helpful to go step by step. And each month, each week, be more comfortable being myself in front of others.
That's a beautiful thing. With the LSD trip, was that something that made you make the move to Mexico, ayahuasca, Bali, or what made it push from out of Canada?
No, so the LSD, you're talking about the very first LSD trip. That was shortly after the THC edible. And then following that LSD trip, which was incredible, and I can go into that, but following that trip, there was many, many years of exploration in Vancouver in Canada with mushrooms, with DMT. And it was only years later that I felt intuitively, I'm done with Canada. I've outgrown this place for now. Maybe I'll come back to it and learn new lessons. But I distinctly remember tripping with two close friends in Vancouver on mushrooms and just feeling depressed and going to the bathroom so I could be alone, and sitting on the floor of this bathroom and staring at the wall and being like, I've got to move. Like, I've got to get out of this matrix. It's just not serving me.
Do you remember exactly what was depressing? Any details?
I think it was during the pandemic, and a lot of the ways that Canada handled that was not okay with me. It did not sit well with me. Personally, I felt like the friends and the circle that I had in Vancouver wasn't pushing me to grow. They were great friends, but there was no growth happening there. And that was the thing. And I remember, I think it was in that trip as well. I recalled when I was traveling in Europe as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, I went backpacking through Europe, and I craved for that freedom, that newness, that freshness, experiencing life. And Bali came up in that mushroom trip. I was like, you got to go to Bali. Had never been to Bali, but kept coming up. So that's what brought me. So Bali was closed. That's why I went to Mexico first, which was so beautiful because I got to experience ayahuasca. Got my homework from ayahuasca. Bali opens up its borders, and now I'm ready to go.
Yeah. We're going to transition a little bit into integration and homework, but would you say first, is psychedelics, manifestation, and energetics intertwined?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, what psychedelics help me see is the energy, the frequency that permeates this entire hologram. I'll never forget the first time I did DMT. It was such a pivotal moment for me because DMT is very fast acting. Within 0 to 5 seconds, you're tripping full on. And to see reality morph from solid, stable to energy frequency in 5 seconds blew my mind and confirmed to me that what all the gurus were teaching in the Kabbalion, Abraham Hicks, all these teachers, whether it's old books or new books, talking about frequency and energy, they were all bang on the money. They were completely correct. I understood it intellectually. DMT showed it to me experientially. So when you say are energetics and psychedelics intertwined, I think that's one of their gifts. they're showing you that there is no separation between the inside world and the outside world. It also ties into manifestation. Everything you experience is a reflection of you, of how you're showing up energetically. So if today, I didn't feel energetically right about this podcast, I could pretty much guarantee that it probably wouldn't go super well. But because I felt super good, super aligned, my morning flowed well, I trust that energy so much. It's never let me down. You can basically predict your future by your energy. And yeah, psychedelics are amazing at tuning their energy. So if you fall off track, if you fall wayside, and it's just you're feeling stuck, you're feeling blocked, you're feeling like I was in Vancouver sitting in that bathroom and just being like, what am I doing in this country? They'll show you the truth.
Yes.
They'll plug you back into source for 6 hours. That's all you need to get the reference point, the compass, the North Star. And then it's your job to integrate that and follow the action steps, follow the clues, follow the puzzle pieces. And everyone has the first puzzle piece. So anyone listening to this saying, I don't know what to do, there's always one thing that you could be doing or that will lead you to the next puzzle piece. But you have to be energetically aligned to follow that. And that's where psychedelics can help.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been describing psychedelics before as an energetic tune-up.
Energetic tune-up, a calibration.
Yes.
Like going to the energetic mechanic. And they're going into your brain and rearranging the furniture. And everything is clean and orderly. But you got to keep it clean and orderly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like fascinating of if you get a download from a psychedelic experience and you get some clarity, you get some answers. Now we get to the homework part. Are you able to integrate that into your practical life? And what is going to make the difference between those who are able to and those who are not to, or take an enormous, significant amount of time to do so? And you said, after your ayahuasca experience, you got this purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big purpose, one would say. You know, some people might not be able to at the same time have that energetic tune up and get into the right frequency where they are like, yeah, I'm gonna go after this and it feels right, and limitations and blocks and limiting beliefs are removed to a certain degree.
So hear this. I got my purpose on ayahuasca to start the YouTube channel. And I launched the YouTube channel only 1 year later.
Still though.
It took that long for me to still dissolve some of the blocks. Ayahuasca helped a lot, but it takes time. It takes time, it takes focus, it takes saying no to distractions, remembering the lessons you learned. Most of all, it takes courage, right? So if I had the courage, I could have probably launched the YouTube channel the week after ayahuasca. But it just takes time to unravel those pieces and those layers. But what happened for me was I knew no matter how long it took me, I would honor that promise that I made to ayahuasca, the mission it gave me. So even though it ended up taking a year, I was working on myself for that year. I was preparing myself. I was taking actions. And as long as you hold to the vision,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how slow you go, just keep going one step at a time.
I relate to that, where I decided in my mind of like, it's a timing thing. I'm going to honor it sooner or later, but it's a timing thing. But then all the social conditioning starts like, maybe it's smarter to go with this first, make some money here first, and then I can. Was that something that happened for you as well? Why it took a year?
That was it. I think, yeah, there was some money pressures and that distracted me. Again, I'm so glad you bring this up. It's not just the courage, it's the trust. Do you trust that the universe will support you financially, resources, friends, whatever you need to make your dream happen? I think the moments where I've trusted the most and leapt into the abyss with courage was the moment where the universe comes in to support you 100%. So when I left Canada, it was such a strong feeling of I gotta do this now that it happened very quickly. and led to so many synchronicities. Meeting the friend that introduced me to his shaman in Mexico and doing ayahuasca at the exact moment that I most needed it. Bali opens up right after. Like, the timing of everything was amazing. I think it's because I trusted so much the path that I was being led on. So
That's a great pointer about the trust, because you have courage, but then you have the trust as well. And what do we tell someone who hasn't experienced those first couple synchronicities yet, or had any type of experience that, oh, if I trust the universe or the source or the mushrooms or ayahuasca, good things will come?
yes. So one of my lessons in my course is, lesson number 2 is study your life. And the core concept of the lesson is, if you go back into your life and look at all the successes and the failures and identify the patterns that led to each one. So the years where you were most in alignment and most successful, what was going on energetically with you? How were you showing up with life? And I believe anyone, even someone who's never done psychedelics, there's been at least a moment or two in your life where you experienced a burst of inspiration, you followed it, you trusted it, you took action on it, and you got a fantastic result. That's your proof. So have a couple of touchstones, is what I would say to people. Find those touchstones in your life that clearly show you, hey, every time I've trusted my intuition and really went for it, I was never let down. Every time I've doubted myself and let other people's opinions bring me down or to my lower self, it never worked out. Anytime that I never really believed in something, but I went against my gut and did it, didn't work out. Failure, catastrophe. Every time I fully believed and had conviction, success. I've noticed that in my life. I'm sure you have too. There's such such a link between these things.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. We've spoken about this before, where what's your theory on what the psychedelics are or the mushrooms are? When you get the downloads or the message, is it your higher self? Is it your intuition? Is it some consciousness without yourself? What is it? For explaining that to someone.
Yeah, so I sort of feel like it's all of those. There is a part of the psychedelic experience which feels very much like you're communicating and receiving downloads from an extraterrestrial intelligence, the intelligence of the mushrooms that can see what I cannot see. There's other parts of the trip that feel like the mushrooms are just opening the gateway to my subconscious, and I'm discovering the gifts and the puzzle pieces for myself. And maybe that's all they need to do is just churn up the subconscious gateway. Other times it feels like I'm dancing with my higher self and the mushroom intelligence. And it's like this threesome, and they're both working on me. The higher self is like watching over the plan, the mushrooms are removing blocks, and I'm here on the bed tripping and trying to like learn and receive everything as a good student. So it feels like a combination.
Yeah. I'm still exploring that part. Like you say, sometimes it feels like I'm speaking to myself. Sometimes it's like mushroom, something extra terrestrial is speaking to me.
But what I notice is sometimes in the beginning of the trip, when the mushrooms have not fully kicked in yet, and my ego is still online, and my ego is trying to like wedge its way in and try to give me some tips or advice, that's where it does not feel like it's the highest form of information. And then later in the trip, I realize, oh, now the ego is fully dissolved and the clarity is so much stronger. And now these messages are knowings. I feel them. They resonate. I'm not trying to intellectually reason my way out of the challenge. I'm actually just tuning into the frequency of it.
Yeah. You've been mentioning before, it's sort of like building a relationship with the mushrooms or with psychedelics or with higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How would you advise people to build a relationship if they never tried it before, or maybe just a couple times, not too experienced?
I have a checklist, the mushroom trip checklist. They can find it at mushroomchecklist.com. It tells you what to do before, during, and after a trip. But the relationship piece, I think it comes from visiting with these substances over a period of time. Like for me, by the time I did ayahuasca, I think it was 5 years of explorations, 4 or 5 years of exploring with mushrooms. So, and I still felt like, holy shit, ayahuasca was the deepest, like a whole other level. Um, but I felt much more prepared because of the explorations. So one thing is just coming back to this realm with respect, with intention, learning from the mushrooms, integrating the homework. This builds the relationship. So let's say you had a mentor and your mentor gave you a very valuable piece of advice for your business.
Mhm.
And a month goes by and you have not taken the advice. How long do you think that person will keep mentoring you? Right? Same thing with the mushrooms. If you receive an inspiration from the mushrooms or some valuable piece of info, you better act on it.
Yeah.
It's the least you can do. And then you'll see the results. And then the next time you're stuck or blocked or you need a bit of guidance, you come back to the mushrooms and they're ready to receive you again. They're ready to give you the next puzzle piece.
Yes. You talked about these days when you're going through a trip, it seems like there's a lot of synchronicities happening
So much.
right after.
Mm-hmm.
Would you devote that to your relationship having been built and there's a deeper trust between you and the mushrooms? And that's also why you're more in tune to receive these synchronicities afterwards?
Yes. I think also it's in the mushroom trip, what I feel is happening is your vibration is being raised to a whole nother level, a much higher, more pure, more in alignment level.
Mm.
So if you're in that in alignment state for 6 hours, that's a lot of time for you to call in new manifestations.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that when I look at my phone at the end of a trip and there's like a new sale that just happened and a client and like things just popping into reality, I'm like, cool. Yeah, because I've done the work. I've been working hard for the last 6 hours
Yeah.
energetically.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of the synchronicity. The other part is, like you mentioned, the relationship, the openness to it. So if someone is living life, synchronicities are happening, but they're sort of skeptical towards them, then that's your relationship with life. You're not likely to receive more of them, or you're not even likely to notice them. Whereas now, the way I live life, I pay attention to everything. If there is something that comes into my field, I know it's meant for me to see it. Doesn't matter what the objective story is. For example, I wanted to go to a workshop that's happening in Austin, and it was quite pricey. But I really wanted to go. And so I said to the universe, make it happen. Like bring me the money or bring me like something. I need this experience. I want this experience. I know I'm meant to be there. And this morning I wake up and there's an email from the retreat leader and he's like, this is very unusual, but I've decided to let people pay what they want for this retreat. All you need to do is pay $100 reservation fee. So objective story, I could say, well, he just decided to do that. But in my hologram, in my simulation, this email is arriving to me for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
I asked for it. I called it in. I better book. This is the homework. I better book this reservation. Because if I don't, what am I telling the universe? It literally just delivered the perfect solution into my lap. This price is too much. Pay what you want.
Yes.
If I was to ignore that, and also at the end of the email, he says, I only send this to 34 people. So it wasn't like a regular newsletter. I had spoken with him before. He had felt my interest. He must have felt other people's interest in this workshop. And he just sent this offer out to just 34 people. I was like, how blessed am I to be one of the 34? I asked for it. I got it. And that's what I want people to pay attention to. Like what you ask, oftentimes you get. But are you listening to the signs? Are you paying attention to it? Are you taking the next puzzle piece and implementing it?
Yes. Are you ready to receive?
Are you ready to receive? Do you have space in your life to receive what you're calling in?
Yeah.
There was a great story in The Secret, which I know is a controversial book for some people, but it's a great story of this woman wanted to attract a partner, and I think she got the advice that she should clear half her closet, because if she was living with a partner, he would need space for his stuff. She did it, and I think the story went like she manifested him in a week or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me energetically.
It does to me as well. Yeah, if you focus on the energetics, that you're already ready energetically for, I'm ready for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show that I'm ready by having physical spaces open, mental spaces open, energetic spaces open.
The number one thing that's keeping people from manifesting what they want is the resistance to it. They say they want $1 million, but if it arrived in their bank account tomorrow, they're not in any way prepared for it. They have no idea where they would invest it. They have no idea how to manage it. They have no idea what the taxes on that would look like. So there's an internal resistance to that that's literally pushing away the very thing they're trying to call in. Same thing with a relationship. You want a relationship, but deep down, you're really enjoying your freedom and your singleness. That's not, magnets, right? If you think of 50 magnets on this side, 50 magnets on this side, you need at least 51 magnets to be pulling you in one direction. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere.
Let's get into this of manifestation and the secret of it. I know you're a big fan of Neville Goddard's work.
Love Neville Goddard's work, the OG of manifestation. He's incredible.
Before we go into it, like, when did it all start for you of like discovering his work and trying to get your way into how manifestation works? And is it thoughts? Is it feelings? What's the framework?
So the concept of manifestation came to me very early. When I was 13, someone I barely knew randomly suggested that I go to the library and get a copy of Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks.
Interesting.
And I went and did it. And in the first page of the book, there's an introduction by Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer says something like, "This book will change your life." And I'm 13, and I'm like, yes, this book will change my life. And it did. It opened up the whole gateway for thoughts create reality. And then I've moved on to other teachers since then, like Neville. But that initial introduction, this is one of the puzzle pieces that I was talking about earlier. Why specifically when I was 13 did that book come into my life? Through a person that I was not closely connected with, who just randomly mentioned it to me. It was like something just dropped into my lap. A little clue. Check this out. And thank God I was receptive enough to follow that clue. So from there, I explored Wallace Wattles, James Allen, couple different teachers. However, I wasn't really applying it. You can have like I said, you can have the intellectual knowledge of something, but do you have the awareness to really apply it? So what happened for me, both with psychedelics and then discovering Neville, I suddenly had the awareness and the discipline to really control my mind. And that came from a lot of psychedelic work. And then on top of that, Neville's teachings, which are so practical, so direct, no fluff. He never uses the words law of attraction in his books. He almost never uses the word manifestation. It's just the core, raw truth of this is how you create reality. Instantly resonated with his work. And that opened up this whole journey of following the breadcrumbs, following those puzzle pieces.
Yeah. If we connect this to, I guess your energy tune-up from psychedelics in order to not have certain blockages block you. He has a lot of books about feeling is the secret and stuff like that.
That's a great one.
That it's a lot about the feeling, and it's a lot about that it needs to feel natural.
Yes.
Speak to me about that.
Right. So everything in your life that you're currently experiencing is because it feels natural for you to experience it. So if you're having a lot of bad days, in some sense, your energy is tuned to that be the natural state for you. It doesn't mean you can't change the state. This is one of Neville's most important teachings, is everything is already created. You're not trying to create anything. You're just choosing the state that you want to inhabit. All states are available to you. And the difference between a poor man and a rich man is just the arrangement of his mind. And God has given you the ability to use your imagination to rearrange your mind. So at this moment, no matter how broke you might be, you have the ability to lay down, close your eyes, and imagine what would it feel like if I was financially secure, and you feel this relief. What would it feel like if I have more than enough at all times? I'm just doing it for 5 seconds right now. If you do that for 20 minutes every single day before you fall asleep, those feelings will start to impregnate your subconscious with the seeds of that new timeline. And you will be led across a bridge of incidents which will feel like it would have happened anyway, but is in fact you yourself guiding yourself to this new reality that you've locked into through feeling. So feel rich, feel strong. I think he has a quote, let the weak man say, I am strong. Like, tune into, let the weak man say, I am strong. First, it feels like a lie. But if you continue to practice the feeling, and Neville calls it the law of assumption, assume it, embody it. He has a great example of when you buy a new suit or a new pair of clothing, and you feel like everyone knows that it's new. It kind of feels uncomfortable the first time because it's like it's still very fresh. It hasn't been worn in.
Yeah.
In reality, no one can tell. They think you've always been wearing suits or you've always been wearing this sort of style. But it takes time for you to feel like you're this new person that dresses in this way. And it's the same thing with feeling. You feel like everyone knows that you've been this way for the last couple of years, therefore you must be this way for the next couple of years. Not at all. You have the power to choose a new state now, and you will embody it. And the new people you meet, and even the old people that knew from before, will accept the new you as long as you maintain it, as long as you have the discipline, the consistency to embody it. And Neville says, you have to die to the old man to become the new man.
Right.
A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. What does that mean? If you're trying to feel rich, but then half the time you're worried and stressed about finances, double-minded.
Double-minded.
If you're trying to feel powerful, but half the time you're in victim mode, double-minded. Now, notice in your life where you feel single-minded. You and I feel single-minded about podcasting. We can churn up at this studio, put a mic in front of us. We know we can do it.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, there was a bit of insecurity. Like, oh, I don't know. Am I able to do this? So it all starts from here.
What are some practices of yours that could tackle the double-mindedness? Because he speaks a lot about also like, this double-mindedness or resistance where you try to envision and embody something, but then your other mind is saying that's not true. So I don't know if you use affirmations, but if you do you use them in a particular way where you go, instead of saying, I have $1 million in my bank account, going, I'm on my way to having $1 million in my bank account?
I learned this from Abraham Hicks as well. You make it as general as it needs to be for it to feel true. So sometimes when you go super specific and it's too far out of your frequency, it's just going to bounce back. If you have minus $100 in your bank account, but you're saying I'm a millionaire, the frequencies are way too far apart. So in that sense, use the mantra I have more money coming into my life every day. Every day I run into new clients and new sales.
Yes.
Dr. Joseph Murphy has a lot of great affirmations, and Florence Scovel Shin. I have a whole, can I pull this up? I have a whole list of
Please do.
amazing mantras, which I'd love to share with everyone. This is so on point. Okay, are you ready for this?
We're ready.
Some money
Are
mantras.
we ready to receive energetically?
Today is the day of my amazing good fortune. Notice how general that is.
Yeah.
Could be that you receive a free coffee today. Still, amazing good fortune. I have a wonderful business in a wonderful way, and I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. I see vividly my immediate and endless supply. It comes from a higher power, and all doors fly open, all channels are free. I see vividly my radiant health, perfect and permanent. I see vividly my heart's desires come to pass in the twinkling of an eye. I give thanks that the universe is my supply, and I am now linked with endless streams of steady, ready money under grace in perfect ways. I am an irresistible magnet for checks, bills, and currency, for everything that belongs to me by divine right. The law of God is the law of increase, and I give thanks for increase under grace in perfect ways.
Mm. Fantastic.
Not a single one of those mentioned $1 million
Not a single one of those has
or a
any
Lamborghini.
double-mindedness vibes to it either.
A true affirmation will feel true to the core of your soul.
Mm.
You'll feel the resonance of it. If any of those didn't feel resonant, don't use them. But if one of them spoke to you and you're like, ooh, that feels spicy, use it. Every day, light a candle in one spot, make a little altar, put some crystals if you're into that, put something that represents wealth to you. Light the candle and sit for 5 minutes and repeat these mantras. Show up every day to this altar and see what happens to your life. It's been extraordinary, the changes I've experienced from that practice.
I'm sure. And many members inside your Unlock God mode community as well. Amazing. What's your thoughts on using microdosing as a tool for up-leveling your life? We can even take it in combination with practices like these.
Yes. So, quick disclaimer, most of my experimentations have been deep doses. I really love to go deep and then go out and integrate and then come back for a deep dose. However, lately, I have been using some microdosing, just the tiniest bit of psilocybin. And it's been incredible. What I've noticed is greater flow, greater alignment. It's just a mini tune-up. And everything in my day flows so smooth. So where other things might take me off my center, in a microdose, I'm able to just glide through it. And I love what you mentioned about integrating that with manifestation. I actually have not done that yet with microdosing, but it's an amazing idea. The microdose will expand your mind and your frequency. And that's a great time to also implement the daily mantras, the visualization, the feeling. Yeah.
This is probably going to be subjective and personal to everyone. But is there some form of a guideline of how often is it of value to do a deep dose? How often, or what could it look like if one wanted to explore microdosing?
So for me, traditionally, I've loved to do a deep dose. I've benefited a lot from doing a deep dose about once a month. Now, this is not in my calendar where every first of the month I must do a trip. It just so happens that a month is enough time for me to integrate and also enough time for me to run into some new challenges that I could then use new puzzle pieces and more guidance to solve. There have been months where I have not taken any. There have been months where I've done it twice a month because the spiritual challenges that I've faced in that moment were much more potent, and I really needed that every 2 weeks. I needed a deep guided session with mushrooms, guidance from the mushrooms. So I would say it's very personal. Tune into it. The best metric you can use is you do a trip. Let's say you do a deep trip, you get the downloads, you work on them for as long as you can, not touching the mushrooms again until you really feel like, okay, I could really use a little bit more guidance here.
Mhm.
You don't want to come back too soon, because if you haven't integrated it, you haven't done the work.
Yeah.
With microdosing, there's a lot of different protocols that people can find online. The simplest one is 1 day on, 2 days off. 1 day on, 2 days off.
Hmm.
Because you want to leave space to just flow with it.
Mhm.
And you don't want the tolerance to go up. That's also one of the things I love about mushrooms is they won't let you abuse them, even if you wanted to, because your tolerance will just shoot up and you won't be able to have them, to have the trip. So once a month seems really potent for me.
Nice. It's good guidance for me personally. Ironically, I decided this is the first day I'm starting microdosing.
Fantastic.
So I'm sitting in microdose right now and
Same, bro.
enjoying it.
Same, bro.
We always said, hey, let's microdose on a podcast. And now we did it without even...
I wasn't going to do it. I felt really amazing this morning. But then right before the podcast, I was like, but maybe just the tiniest thing. Because I know from experience, it just opens up my channel much more. So this would have been a great podcast regardless. But on the microdose, I'm just tuned in. Yeah. So very cool. We're both microdosing. Fantastic.
Pretty cool. What would be the vision of like the billion humans? Let's say a billion humans takes mushrooms or their psychedelic of choice at the same time, the same day. What do you think could happen in terms of the frequency of the planet? What are people gonna feel? What are the 7 billion that's not on it gonna feel, potentially?
I feel like we would like launch off into a new timeline completely, and like 5D Earth would open up. Yeah, 1 billion people on mushrooms. I mean, there's a great power in numbers, I think, when they've done mass meditations and they've seen effects from that. So I imagine 1 billion people on that frequency, it will create ripples energetically that will change the earth. Change our conception of ourselves, change our collective consciousness. Like 1 in 7, that's a lot. Or 1 in 8.
More unity, more compassion, love, understanding.
What I imagine is the next morning. Were you one of the 1 billion?
Sitting with a cup of coffee.
Exactly. You're grabbing your coffee and you're just looking around to see who's a little bit more awake. I can tell at this point pretty accurately just by looking at someone if they've taken psychedelics or not. It's not a judgment on consciousness. It's just you can tell if someone's been in those realms.
Yeah.
So I imagine if 1 billion people were actively, intentionally using psychedelics to grow and to learn, wow, like you would be walking down the street and you could just tell who's aligned, awake, turned on, tapped in, dialed in, flowing with their higher self.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a second, trying to describe it a bit for the audience who haven't experienced this yet. What are we seeing when we're on a good dose, when we look at plants, animals, the earth, other human beings? What are we seeing and feeling?
So tough to describe. Visually depends on the strain of mushroom. Some mushrooms are very visual and others are more emotional. It also even depends trip by trip, I find. What I'm seeing is everything becomes more 3D than 3D. It kind of starts looking like Legoland or Minecraft. And I distinctly feel like I'm able to see more of the raw source code of reality. So I remember one time starting a trip at home, feeling like I needed to get outside, driving to the beach, sitting on the stone steps overlooking Echo Beach, and just looking out at the waves. And I was feeling like I was seeing the waves for the very first time in my life.
Mm.
I wasn't seeing the label of the waves, the story of the ocean. I was just seeing the raw data, the crest of the wave and the little minuscule particles coming off and evaporating off the waves, and just the amount of detail. So I think the presence is the key there. It taps you so deeply into the present moment. And coming back to the truth telling,
Mm.
it's like I was seeing the truth of the ocean and hearing it as well. So on the mushrooms, hearing the ocean, I felt like, wow, this is a symphony. This is not random chaotic noise of ocean waves breaking on each other. There's a symphony, there's an orchestra going on here,
Mhm.
and we're completely missing the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the mushrooms, I was hearing the show and I was like, what? This is amazing. So that's visually. What's more interesting to me these days is the internal landscape. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like someone goes into your brain and just rearranges every neuron, connects all different neurons in ways that have never been connected. I literally feel like 10 times smarter on mushrooms.
Mm.
Like I'm unlocking genius mode. Also unlocking the freshness of seeing things brand new without filters.
Mm.
You know, when you're like a teenager, like, and everything is new to you, and you looking at something and a 30-year-old adult looking at something, you're seeing more patterns there that they're not seeing because they've been conditioned to see it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But the young kid or the teenager is just able to spot so many different things, and that's why people, they pick up so many things quicker.
I'm gonna quote you here of if you do mushrooms a good enough dose, you cannot not talk about that. The divinity that's in all of us. We're living in an energetic, who knows what this is, experiencing a million different frequencies: light, color, sound, intuition, thoughts, emotion, love. This is magic. And it's almost like it shouldn't exist, but it exists all around us. And when you're on these trips, you get to experience a bunch of it in different forms, different ways of consciousness and frequency. So, yeah, obviously there's so much more to learn, but I'm just so excited about having more people experiencing that.
We're so blessed to have these tools that enable us to go there so quickly, so easily. I know there's some people that feel like instead of psychedelics, we should be meditating for 20 years and accessing those same states after 20 hard years of work.
Right.
And I see that point as well. But I also feel like, hey, the universe planted these, I call them cheat codes in the video game.
Mm.
So you can find psychedelic mushrooms, I believe, on 6 of the 7 continents. That doesn't feel like a coincidence to me. That feels like someone planting little hacks in the video game so that you're able to experience this,
Hmm.
this divine connection, this truth, this mystical realm. And then you come back to your 3D self and you're changed. You live differently.
Mm.
Like for people listening to this saying like, how, okay, I've seen something mystical. How does it fundamentally change my business or my bank account or something practical? It does.
Mm.
It does in a huge way.
Yeah.
You're just living life on a completely different timeline.
Yes. If we go into synchronicities again, or being led by, guided by the mushrooms, or guided by the source or the universe. This can come in the form of people as well. Like, how important do you think it is to bring in new people into your life?
Huge. Hugely important.
Mhm.
That's one of the biggest things that holds people back.
Yeah.
Their social circle. You need people that are on your vibe and or ahead of you in some area
Mm.
that are expanding you. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And many people are in the wrong room. They're not being inspired by their circle. They're not being challenged by their circle.
Mhm.
And I think some people are afraid to find new social circles because they know they're going to get challenged. They're going to get called out on their bullshit.
Mhm.
If you're not the smartest person in the room, that means you have a lot of learning to do. So being humble, being willing to learn, always being willing to learn. And people are huge. There's no understating it. It's probably one of the single biggest determinants of your life, the people you're around.
You've been able to establish the Spirit Vibes Mastermind here in Bali that we're going into in a couple hours.
Yes. Yes.
Where incredible people are coming to this mastermind, old and new. Sometimes, I just remembered from the last week, there was a girl who had been seeing your YouTube videos,
Yes.
not being in Bali, but then she traveled to Bali, obviously not just for that, but as she was doing that, she was like, maybe I should also contact James and see about the Spirit Vibe Circle. And she was an amazing human being. Great story, and I learned a lot from her sharing vulnerably. How do you think people should think about that? Of you see a random stranger on the internet, maybe for the first time, and you resonate with what he's saying and you value kind of the same things. What's a good advice for them?
Reach out to them. Pay for mentorship
Mhm.
as well. I know this is going on in a different tangent, but mentors are hugely important.
Huge.
If you find someone who you're really resonating with online, either become their friend and learn from them through osmosis, or even better, hire them as a coach and let them train your mind. That's the fastest way of growing and learning. And every successful person, from athletes to CEOs, they have mentors.
Mhm.
So, yeah, when you find someone online that you resonate with, read their content, watch their content, but try and connect with them. Try and find someone on that vibe in your city, in your circle, or move environments.
Yes.
So it's not just the people, it's also the environment. We're both in Bali, and this environment is just so conducive to
Mhm.
personal growth.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things we most love about being here. It's not the same if if you're in a city or in a small town and you're not happy,
Mhm.
for God's sake, move.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young, broke, but you're free, move. You will find the money, you will find the way. If a city is calling to you, move now. You will regret not moving sooner.
Mm. And there's a reason why they say environment is like everything. Both like in terms of the city, country you live, but then also the people you surround yourself with. And ultimately, maybe as a first principle, the energetics, the frequency, high frequency or low frequency, good vibes or not good vibes, which comes from the people you surround yourself with. And they have certain knowledge, certain skills you can learn from and develop. And yeah, you make each other grow, right? Like you said before, there's no growth in the comfortableness of your old circle if no one is ever questioning anything. Like, why are you doing that now again? Like, what's the reason? What's your intention?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love about the Spirits Vibes Mastermind here, where you're always initiating with great questions that makes people reflect and really ponder about what's important for them in life. As you did when you went into the intention of ayahuasca, for example. What is my purpose? What is valuable to me? What would make me feel deeply aligned?
Yeah. And just on the topic of people, if someone is a creator of some sort, they're creating YouTube videos
Mhm.
or a community of some sort or a product, ask yourself, who are the people that I want to attract to my YouTube?
Mm.
So like, a lot of people start YouTube or Instagram or social media and they just want the numbers.
Yeah.
It's like they want 1 million followers. Whereas if they had 1,000 people that were their ideal clients, their ideal customers, their ideal listeners of the podcast or the YouTube, that's worth way more than a random generality of a million people who are only surface level connected to you.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest gifts I've gotten from my YouTube journey are the people that are reaching out to me, the people that are joining my community, joining my course. I'm just amazed by the quality of these people.
For a reason, like you say.
It's just like, how am I so blessed to have attracted these specific people into my life who get me, who push me, who challenge me? It's amazing.
Probably related to my next question of when 2024 started, you had an intention.
Wow, you've done your research.
An intention about up-leveling and
Oh my God, I love this.
please expand on that, your intention for 2024.
I felt it was very important to pick one word for the year that would guide me. I also intuitively just felt 2024 is going to be a year of transformation. And the word I picked was up-level. Meaning, universe, I'm ready for the transformation. Up-level me. Let's go. Whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be unblocked, put the challenges in front of me, give me the work, I will do it. And it was a very firm commitment. And as we head into 2025, I recommend everyone does this. Pick a word or a very clear intention that you can 100% align with. Right? So maybe if like wealth is the most important thing you want to transform, pick one about wealth. Universe, the word for the year is wealth. Anything and everything that can support me on my wealth journey, bring it to me. For other people, health, strength, commitment, decision, decisiveness. You know, there's so many juicy words that you can play with.
Potent, juicy words.
Potent, juicy, spicy words. Make this year spicy.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know what to pick, just ask for a spicy surprise. Universe, delight me and surprise me. I'm open to it. But it can't be done in a weak way. You have to like really intend with all your being, all your heart. Universe, surprise me.
Yes.
When you do that, the universe responds. If you just do it wishy-washy, there's no strength in that. There's no energy in that. I think that's one of the main problems people face with manifestation. Weak intentions. Napoleon Hill talks about this. A weak fire creates weak heat. Strong bonfire that you're constantly fueling every day, adding more wood to the fire. It's going to burn the house down in a good way.
Yeah.
You know?
Makes a lot of sense. I figured we could end a little bit with like sort of questions to the audience that they can ask themselves. And I know you're phenomenal at this. And I can help kickstart this from one of the questions I heard you ask before. Asking it to yourself, asking it to the Spirit Vibe Circle, etc. But it's like, one good question is, in what ways are you hiding certain parts of yourself? In what ways are you hiding the layers of yourself that maybe it's time to let them be seen? And how can you lean into that today? Sharing that more with loved ones, friends, your audience, your customers, clients. What are some of those things was the question you asked, which was amazing. We can jam on that a little bit, but also, would you have any more great questions for the audience that they can ask themselves?
In what ways are you not showing up in truth? In what ways are you... What would your life look like if you were fearless? What kind of decisions would you make today if you had unlimited courage? What would that life look like? What would you do if you felt secure and abundant in every area of your life?
I heard you say this before as well. What would you stop doing if you truly loved yourself?
Yes, that one I have to give credit to Kamal Ravikant, who
Right.
wrote the book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It.
Yes.
And that's one of his questions is, would I really do this if I loved myself? would I really talk to myself this way? Would I eat this nasty piece of junk food if I actually loved myself and loved my body and loved my vessel? Would I judge myself like this if I loved myself?
Maybe some common questions as well of like, would I actually remain in this city or in this job that I don't really like if I loved myself?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would do something else.
What will the next 5 years of my life look like if I don't change anything?
Ooh, going the other way around. I like that.
What would my life look like if I don't do this thing that is burning inside me that wants to be expressed? Yeah, like the right question can really unlock things for you. You can also turn a question into an intention. If every morning you say to the universe, universe, show me my path, lead me to my deepest, highest, most divine purpose,
Mm.
and you do that with feeling every morning, you bet your life you're going to start seeing some clues and signs. Maybe not right away. These things take a little bit of time, but with persistence. Yeah. There's just no way when you activate that intention, even on a purely physical level, you're instructing your neurons and your brain to start coming up with ideas and solutions. So even someone who's not, let's say, connected to the spirit world in that way, they can look at it from a very practical sense.
Mm.
Instruct your neurons. You're a walking computer with software that is entirely configurable. Are you configuring it in the way you want?
Tune it in the way you find most suitable
Tune it.
for your quality of life.
Tune it, and above all, allow yourself to die to the old man so you can step into the new man.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be afraid of changing, right? Don't be afraid of changing in general because everything is constantly changing and in motion. So whether you like it or not, you will leave your old identity behind and enter a new, better one.
Well, this is the thing. If you don't change when you know deep down in your heart that you should be changing, the universe will push you to change, but it might not be as pleasant. It might be a little bit rough. You ever experienced that in life where you knew you should have done something and you didn't, or you procrastinated? The universe is going to start nudging you. So always take the lead. Dance with the universe, but take the lead. It's waiting on you to direct your life.
Yeah.
Don't be a passive observer waiting for life to push you around.
And start dancing with the mushrooms is a good way to do that too.
Dance with the mushrooms. Dance with the plant intelligence. Use every tool in your toolbox that will help you expand your mind, connect deeper with your intuition, connect you with your soul and your heart. For some people, it's breath work.
Yeah.
For some people, it's deep meditation. For some people, it's a walk in nature. Find out what works and double down on it.
Exactly. Try it all. Try it all. Anything else you think we haven't touched upon yet that you would like us to dig into a bit?
I think the importance of intuition. It's something that I've been really honing in, and the mushrooms have helped a lot with this. Trust your intuition. If you don't think you should go somewhere, don't go.
Yeah.
Don't test it and be like, I'm going to go to check it out if the intuition was right. The intuition is there. It's guiding you. Who knows where it's coming from, if it's a higher power or your subconscious or both. There's very important but quiet messages being delivered to you all the time. Pay attention to your energy. Instead of being information-wise, be energy-wise. I will not do something if the energy feels off. At the very least, I will just sit and do nothing and feel into what the next move is. Oprah says it really well. She says, if I don't know what to do, I do nothing. Right? Everyone's like, you got to make this decision. There's pressure. I do nothing until I'm energetically aligned. And every time I've gone against that, you just learn a lesson, which is fine if you like learning rough lessons, but so much better to just pay attention to the energy. And I imagine it like surfing the energetic waves of life. So there will be dips, there will be challenges, There will be waves that take you off your surfboard. That's okay. Just get back on, find your center, keep surfing.
But when you find that moment of inspiration, that
Double down.
that wave,
Yes. Oh, when you find that golden thread that is like, this is the best thing ever, you feel the energy, you feel the spark, follow it.
surf
Follow
it.
it. Bashar has a great formula. Bashar says, in every moment, follow your highest excitement.
Mm.
Follow your highest excitement to the best of your ability, taking it as far as you can with no insistence on the outcome, other than that it's exciting you. It's pulling, that's the excitement, he says, is the message from your higher self. It's information given to you. This is the right thing. This is the right path. This is a clue.
For the next guest,
Ooh.
what would be a question for the next guest?
Oh, wow. What has been the deepest experience you've had with God? That'll be a fun one for them.
That will be a fun one.
First question to start them off.
That'll kickstart things for you.
What's been the deepest experience of the mystical, the divine, God?
Great question. Thanks, James. Where can people find you if they want to dig deeper into your world and everything you're doing?
So, the James Xander Trip is my podcast. If you enjoy conversations about mystical, shroomy topics, that's the place to be. My YouTube channel, James Xander, that's where I post my mushroom trip guides, everything I've learned from ayahuasca, everything I've learned on my spiritual journey. And for those that want to dive deeper, I do have this incredible 30-day course that uplifts your consciousness day by day, bit by bit. I include the best tools that I have discovered from mushrooms, from psychedelics, from God, and it's called Unlock God Mode. So for those that are ready to unlock God Mode, they can find that at unlockgodmode.org.
Incredible. Thank you so much for this conversation.
It's been such a pleasure. Such great questions. Love your vibe and deeply grateful for our friendship.
Likewise.